All right, hey there, everybody. Welcome to my first attempt at live streaming in forever. That's not true. I was live streaming some Dragonlance game playing for a little bit, but you will see I am not in my geek corner right now. I'm in a different part of the house because everyone in my house is home tonight. I figured on a Friday night, no one would be home. My young adult kids would be gone out doing something, but everyone's home, everyone's using the internet, and my wife is actually teaching tonight, and she teaches online. So she's downstairs in the area where my geek corner is, where the strongest internet is. So that is why she is. That's why I'm up here in a different part of my house, and I wanted to jump on. I didn't realize I was going to be up here, so I don't have my good equipment or anything like that. So my apologies for the quality of this stream. But anyways, it's great to be here with all of you. First and foremost, I just want to thank each and every one of you that are a part of the community here in my Geek Corner channel. Hard to believe I've been doing this YouTube thing for quite a few years, and really, I just do this really for kicks and giggles. Like, this is just a hobby of mine. I don't do this to make money. I don't do this professionally. I just like to geek out, and I like to meet people from all over the world and talk about geek culture and geeky things. So sometimes we talk about Star Wars, sometimes we're talking about board games, sometimes we're talking about miniature painting, and other times we talk about faith and fitness and everything else in between. And so lately, I've been on a real kick getting back into Dragonlance. And so I've been reading a number of books. Since I finished my Star Wars Expanded Universe collection, I decided to now start collecting all the Dragonlance novels. There's about 200 of them, supposedly. Kind of just found a Google Doc with all of them. So I'm going to try to find as many of those as I can. And I've been plowing through those and reading those, and which is a great time to be a Dragonlance fan right now because the latest book by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman just came out, Dragons of Deceit. It's volume 1 in the new Dragons of Destiny series. Yeah, Destinies. Should know this by now. Volume 1 in the Dragonlance Destiny series, and it's been a long time since I bought a hardcover fiction book. Buy them a lot for work and things like that. But very, very rarely do I buy a hardcover fiction book. So it was great to get into this. And so this is what I'm going to be talking about tonight here on the live stream. And again, just a shout out to everyone who's been, whether you've been liking videos, commenting on the videos, sharing videos, telling other people about my videos. I really, really appreciate that. I actually use pretty much 100% of the income that comes in through YouTube to bless other people. So right now we are working with Compassion Canada to do a number of projects with them in Guatemala. And so your support of this channel, whether it's even through the merchandising now, like I've got merchandising now on my YouTube channel. So everything on there, 100% of the proceeds goes back into the community, and right now it's going to Guatemala. So thank you so much for your support there. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a tickle in my throat. I'm healthy. It's okay. I just finished wolfing down some dinner before this live stream, so I'm drinking a nice peppermint tea this evening. And so let's just dive right into this. Let's go into, again, this is my spoiler review of Dragons of Deceit. So spoilers. There will be spoilers in this video. So if you have not read the book yet and you don't want to know anything about it, please hit the thumbs up and come back after you've read the book. And yeah, because you've been warned. You've been warned. I am going to spoil this book like crazy in here. So now, if you have seen my non-spoiler review of the book, you will have heard in that video that I gave the book a 2.5 out of 5. Now, some of you might be thinking that's absolutely terrible. Well, it's not the best score. It's not the worst score either, but it's definitely not the best. So, sorry, what I'm going to do here, whoops, let's make sure I don't get an audio here. I'm just going to put the link here in the chat for my spoiler-free review. So if you haven't seen that yet, you can go and watch spoiler-free over there. But again, I'm going to spoil this one. Again, gave it a 2.5 out of 5. And the reasons I gave it a lower score, as I shared in that video, and I'm going to give some examples of this in my review today, really comes down to the pacing and the style of writing that was done in this book. Now, I've read so many books from Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman over the last close to 40 years. Basically, any big series that they've done, I have read them, I've gone through them, I have loved them, I've devoured them. I've even read a number of their books that they've written individually. One of my favorites, I'm going to have to read this one real soon because I just got my hands on it again. I can't remember exactly when it was written, but it's a book called The Immortals by Tracy Hickman. Now, I'm not going to tell you anything about that book. Just Google it. And in the world that we have been living in for the past 2.5 years, this is a great, great, great story and a great concept for a book. And I think this book was written in the 90s or maybe the early 2000s at the latest. But The Immortals by Tracy Hickman, if you have never heard of that one, Google it, check that one out. But I'm a big fan of Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman, whether together or as individuals. So that was really the thing that starting off with this book that set me off about it was it didn't feel like one of their books. They're very strong in character development, but they're also normally very good in pacing and keeping the story really interesting while we're getting to know the characters. I mean, the example that I use for this is Dragonlance Chronicles. The very first book, Dragons of Autumn Twilight, when the friends are coming back to the Inn of the Last Home, right? And they've been gone for 5 years. They haven't seen each other, and they want to give an update on the quest that they've all gone on to find evidence about, the gods of old, the lost gods. Well, we don't know anything about them. Right? We don't know anything about Tanis Half-Elven. We don't know anything about Flint Fireforge. We don't know anything about Tasselhoff Birdfoot. We don't know anything about Raceland and Caramon Majere. We don't know anything about Sturm Brightblade. And then we're introduced, and they're like the best friends. We don't know anything about Kitiara, except for the fact that she didn't show up. We don't know anything about them. And then we're introduced to 2 new characters right away, Gold Moon and Riverwind. We don't know anything about them either. And that just jumps right into action. We don't know who Fizban is. We don't know who any of these people are. And it's in the story, in the driven of the narrative, that we get to learn more about the characters. We learn about Tanis and his upbringing as a half-elf and not feeling like he belongs to either world, and the struggle between his elf nature and his human nature, his love between an elf woman and a human woman. But all that stuff was just brought out later while we're going through this action, which is very similar to other writings from Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman. We see this. I just finished reading the Deathgate Cycle series. I've been reading those 7 books over the last couple of years. Same kind of thing. We don't know anything about Alfred. We don't know who Alfred is. We don't know who. Oh, I'm blanking out on the name of the Parton main character there. The guy, but is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Like, we don't know anything about these guys. The Lord of the Nexus. We don't know anything about them. But the story just drops them into the story. We start getting some action, and then we get to know them. This book does the exact opposite of that. Okay, and that I really, really struggled with that here in Dragons of Deceit, where literally for I think it's like 106 pages, or even more than that, like 112 pages before you get to book 2 in here. 112 pages, a third of the book is nothing but getting to know this new character, Justina Rosethorn. Like, we learn everything there is to know about her in the first 112 pages. And it was boring. Like it just flat out was. It was very boring. Um, some of the things that we learn about her as a character, like we learned that her mother is from the island of Urgoth. Her father is a Salamnic knight. Um, and we're introduced to her story with little snippets and rumors and like one-liners about where this is fitting in the larger story, in the larger Dragonlance saga. So it takes place, basically during the first book, or maybe even before the first book of Dragonlance Chronicles. So it, starts off with her. I think she's like 13 or 15 years old, something like that, and we learn about the castle that she grows up in. We learn that again that her father Gregory is a knight of Salamnia, and he's very committed to the measure. He's very committed to the oath and the measure. Very committed to living that knightly through knightly virtues and tradition. His wife is kind of much more wild because she's from Urgoth, and that's where again we met characters from Urgoth in the original Chronicle series. There was the captain of the ship where the heroes of the Lance, when they went down into the Blood Sea of Istar, it was actually a captain from Urgoth that was there as well. And so we learned that her mother dabbles with omens, like she reads tea leaves and gets omens and kind of visions of the future. And so she's gotten all these different visions of Destina and her destiny and things like that. So you learn about her heritage, you learn about her parents, you learn about the castle that she lives in. It's kind of really built up to be this great, important landmark in the area of Salamnia. And again, the challenge of this really is too, they're trying to set up this family as a very important family, as a real family of influence, even though we've never heard of them before in any other writing because they're new, right? So I get it. There's a challenge with this. So they're really trying to hype them up. I know I've been reading a number of reviews and watching other YouTube videos that does reviews, and they said because of this, they're kind of comparing a Destina Rosethorn to a Mary Sue, right? And by definition, she's not a Mary Sue. The definition of a Mary Sue is just someone where everything works, never has any problems, can do anything, can go anywhere, and can accomplish anything. Destina Rosethorn is definitely not that. She's got trials, she's got struggles, she's got pain, and again, it's good stuff, but it's not anything overly new. It's not adding anything new and unique to the Dragonlance saga. So, we go through and, we learned that, she wants to be a good lady of the castle. So she's kind of planning out her future as well, who she's going to marry. And it just kind of progresses very, very, very slowly. Like at one point, there's finally a hint of some action, a hint of a battle, where the battle that happens at the High Clerist's Tower kind of comes through their area. So a dragon is spotted, a blue dragon is spotted. So the dragon armies from a low-ranking dragon high lord shows up to try to attack their castle, and they defeat them quite literally. The sun is coming in from all directions here now. It's a very bright room in here. Anyways, we'll just have to deal with it. It'll set a little bit more. It feels very Dragonlance-y now with the sun coming in like this. So, can I get rid of that at all? No, it's there no matter where I put my computer. If I go this way, then I've got the sun coming in from this way. So let me do this. There, that blocks it a little bit better. There we go. Sorry about that. Again, I'm not in my regular corner. So yeah, so you get these dragon army shows up, and so great, we're gonna get some action. They're gonna tie this family into the Battle of High Clerist's Tower, and they do that because the father, Sir Gregory, has got to go fight with the other knights of Salamnia. So he goes off to fight with Storm Brightblade to defend the High Clerist's Tower. And then the captain of the castle and all the soldiers there easily defeat the small little goblin force that was coming in there, gets rid of them. And again, in a couple of pages. So again, out of this 112 pages, you've got like 2, maybe 3 pages of any kind of fighting, any kind of action, any kind of adventure in a Dungeons and Dragons novel, right? Got it written right there, a Dungeons and Dragons novel. Like, need to kill some kobolds, even at level 1, like let's get into the story a little bit. And so it just doesn't do it. So that's why it just kind of falls flat. And then it just goes back into the problems of heading up a castle. And this is one of the things, again, if you're just joining me, this is a spoiler review, so I am going to be talking spoilers in here. One of the fears that I had with this book is how are they going to introduce time travel? I think I made a video about that in, should we be worried? I think with the title of that video, should we be worried? You can check that out here on my channel as well. Dragons of Deceit, should we be worried? I kind of made a little video about that 4 weeks ago. So one of the things I was worried about is how they're going to introduce the time travel. How's she going to even know about time travel? She's not a wizard. Her parents are not wizards. There's nothing, remotely to connect this new character, Destina Rosethorn, to the adventures that happened in Dragonlance Chronicles. There's nothing to tie her into Tasselhoff Burrfoot, who had the device of time, the device of time journeying. Nothing. And so literally, and this was one of my fears of this book, and they did it. And I didn't talk about this in the other review because it would have been too spoilery, but literally here on page 75, there's a book that's open on her father's desk. And it's a story of Huma, right? We know all the knights love the legend of Huma, and they're motivated and spurred on. They want to be regarded as a knight like Huma. And there's a little thing in here. Let me just read for this. So one of Huma's best friends was a mage named Magus. And so this is the book that Destina finds on her father's desk. It says, Magus came to Huma in the night as he was kneeling in prayer. I lay on the floor in a corner of the room, wrapped in a blanket. Huma rose to his feet and Magus started to speak to him. I did not mean to eavesdrop, but I was afraid of Magus, as were most of us on the fort, and I pretended to be asleep rather than to have to face him. Magus was extremely excited. He told Huma he had important information. He had learned that the Conclave of Wizards had obtained a powerful artifact that permitted the user to travel back in time. He termed the artifact the device of time journeying. He said that he could lay his hands on this device and use it to travel back in time to save Huma's young sister, Greta, who had died more than 10 years ago at age 17. Okay. Then it continues, again in this note that's written in here. It's a valiant warrior in her own right. Greta had suffered what seemed a minor arrow wound in a skirmish with forces of the Dark Queen. The wound had turned putrid. No healer could help her, and Huma came to believe the arrow that had struck her had been poisoned. With this magical device, I can go back in time and stop the arrow from hitting her, Magus told his friend. Magus had been betrothed to Greta. The two had loved each other dearly, and Huma must have been tempted, for he adored his sister. Yet he was doubtful. And then it kind of continues, and then Huma decides it's not good to use this device for his own gain and not to save his sister. So, and then there's a note right here on page 76. So Destina's father puts a note, a little handwritten note in this book, right? It says, if I could go back in time, I would convince the knights to prepare to face our foes, and we would not be called upon to die in a hopeless battle I foresee coming. And this is what implants the idea, because then what happens is, so Sir Gregory goes to the High Clerist's Tower. He dies there with Sturm Brightblade. And then everything happens, in the War of the Lance as we know it. But for Destina, what happens in her case is because she's a woman, because she's underage, she loses the castle. So she does manage, so it does continue, like again, I think it starts when she's 16, it continues all the way until she's 21 when she's a legal age. but the father's will was lost in the Battle of Palanthas because that's where his lawyer is. I mean, this is what we're reading about. We're reading about lawyers and wills and who owns a castle and things like that. So I get they're trying to set up this fall, right, of this leader of this rich person setting up this fall. But so we're spending 116 pages just reading and reading and reading and reading about this. And this is how she learns about time travel, from a little handwritten note from her father in a book that was just very conveniently just sitting on her desk. That was one of my big fears of this book, and they did it. And so that really dropped my interest in this, because it's too simplistic. It's too easy. There's no challenge here of just learning, getting this information about this. And then so that's the first third of the book, is literally just Destina Rosethorn's rise and fall, and that's where it ends. Book 2 then starts her journey of trying to figure out how she can go back in time and save her father from dying. So she gets it into her head that just saving one person isn't going to change anything in history. So hi, leaving a like, but I haven't read the book. We'll see this when I read it. Awesome. Thanks for coming by and leaving the like. I really appreciate it. I am spoiling it in this video, so definitely come back after you've read it. And we got to get a bunch of people together and do a Dragonlance stream together real soon. So enjoy. So book 2 is her journey of how can she go back in time in order to save her father. And she needs to change time in order to make that happen and bring him back so that he doesn't die. They don't lose the castle. She doesn't lose her birthright. She doesn't lose her money. She doesn't lose the castle, all of this stuff. Very spoiled rich girl kind of story, which they've done before, right? They've done it before with Laurana. And Laurana is one of my favorite characters in Dragonlance. So maybe one day Destina will be one of my favorite characters too. But there's only so often you can get away with spoiled rich girl story in a book series. So that's the second half of the book. The second third of the book, again in this pacing of just her trying to get these items in order to go back in time. So she's got to, first of all, she's got to figure out. So she learns this from a wizard who never took the test in the Tower of High Sorcery. So he kind of just has like a shop, and he has a magical item, and he got a glimpse of the future where magic is destroyed and the world becomes a world without magic. So he's trying to stop that from happening because he won't be able to make a living if there's no magic in the world anymore. Which was kind of, again, just very weak on how they introduced that magical clock to see the future. So again, yeah, so to get us all the way to book 3 here, it's another 120 pages, literally 120 pages of her trying to figure out how to get an item called the Gray Gem. Now, the Gray Gem was new for me. I have read a lot of the Dragonlance books, but I've not read all of them. So I've never read the Chaos War books. So that whole chaos and the one true God or the creator God or the high God, I don't even know what they called them. I never read those. I didn't read the trilogy of the Lost Souls. I own them all, but I haven't read them yet. So this Gray Gem was new to me. So learning that the dwarf god, or the god of one of the neutral gods, Reorx, had captured Chaos and locked him into this gem, and like a stone, basically. And because Chaos is in there, she could bring that stone with her back in time, and the Chaos there would allow her to change time exactly as if she would have brought a Kender or a dwarf or a gnome with her in time traveling, which is what Dragonlance Legends was, right? Of going back in time with Tasselhoff is what allowed Raceland to change time and actually succeed in defeating the Queen of Darkness and then defeating all the gods, actually. So again, 120 pages just to get a stone from the dwarves. Very slow, pacing really poor. and like no action at all in here at all, like at all. So again, it was just all a lot of conversation, a lot of cut and paste of what Destina's wearing. I don't know why they had to describe her outfit so often, but they just kept doing it. Um, so so again, just really was there. So for me, the book picks up. The story becomes a lot more interesting when we do get into book three. So now, she's got a plan. She's got the gray gem. Now she needs to get the device of time traveling. So she heads off to Solace to go to the Inn of the Last Home, the last known location of Tasselhoff Burfoot, because he is the last person to be in possession of that magical device. Now we learn very quickly that he doesn't have it. He gave it to Astinus of the Library of Palanthus, who basically is a god Gillian, the neutral god who documents the entire history of the world of Kryn. And so again, so she kind of gets there, but there's nothing that she can do to get it. But then there were a couple of fun chapters. Like again, it picked up for me here that we started to have some fun. It started again to feel like Dragonlance. So Destina had a special brooch that this wizard gave her that she might need to change forms. So she turned herself into a kender, and she was also wearing a ring of friendship so that if she shook hands with someone, it would make that person kind of really want to befriend them and to do favors for them and things like that. So she shakes Tasselhoff's hand somehow, even though no one else could get this ring off. Or oh no, that's a different ring. Sorry. Tasselhoff gets the ring off and steals it without realizing he stole it. And that's like a Kender tradition that if someone else gives you a ring, then you're married. So now Tasselhoff introduces everyone to his new wife, Mary. And so there's a big, huge celebration. Now Tasselhoff thinks he's married to Destina Rosethorn, who is in disguise in the form of a Kender. Those scenes were great. I really loved those. I mean, Tasselhoff, who doesn't love Tasselhoff Burfoot? One of the best characters in Dragonlance, in my opinion. Just so much fun, so lighthearted, really just was a lot of laughs. And then she would turn human again, and Tasselhoff would be like, "What you do with my wife?" And everyone's trying to tell him, "No, it's the same woman." Man, the sun, it's really coming in. It's the same woman, and he wouldn't believe them. And he's like, wants to be a good husband, and and so he's trying to find his wife, and thinks that Destina, kidnapped her. And so it was it was fun. So that was really cool. But again, there's not much really going on and happening with this. And then like it goes like a long time, like really just back and forth, trying to get this device of time traveling. And then when does it finally happen? It finally happens at not for a while. Like chapter 35. Where is it here? Yeah. Sorry. Here, chapter 33. They all plunge into the river of time. So chapter 33. So again, we're 330 pages into this, in a 279 page book. 381 page book. Right, page 330. And finally, they travel in time. The main crux of this story finally now happens. So for 330 pages, it's like, oh my goodness, like, do something, please. So Destina gets her hands on the Tremblay device. Tasselhoff says, no, we can't go back to that battle because he doesn't want to see Sturm die again. That would be too sad. Let's go back to the Inn of the Last Home on the night when everyone meets, and so that he can introduce his wife to his friends, before Raceland died, before Sturm died, before Flint died, and it all gets messed up, and that's what happens. They go back in time and end up in the Inn of the Last Home in that very opening scene from Dragonlance Chronicles, Dragons of Autumn Twilight. So that was really cool. Again, a little bit of nostalgia feel, with that. But there's things that are off because of the gray gem, because of chaos being there. Fizban is not there. So Paladine, who gets the adventure in motion, is not there to do that. They don't interact with Gold Moon and River Wind, and bring kind of the knowledge of the new gods in. Like it just kind of everything kind of goes, becomes like a big giant mess. The young Raceland in the red robes figures out that there's something wrong here with the people who are in the room. That's something wrong with Tass and all these things, and so there's kind of a tuffle, and that ends up activating the time traveling device again, and they go back in time even further. So Raceland, Sturm, Tasselhoff, and Destina all end up shooting back in time to the days of Huma at the start of the Third Dragon War. So when the Queen of Darkness was coming into the realm, to take over the world, and before Huma defeats her, that's where these characters end up. But because again of the magic and chaos, Raceland has full knowledge of his entire life right up to his death. Sturm has full knowledge of his life right up to his death, even though um, it was a younger version of them that went back in time because of chaos and whatever, just all kind of brought them in. Um, and that's how it ends. So it just kind of ends just like that. So Tanis, gets the information because there was also a monk, not a monk, one of the aesthetics from the library, Brother Karn, who was there. He wanted to give Destina the device, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, the device is broken. Some of the parts are in the present, some of the parts are in the past, so they won't be able to put it back together. So they won't be able to time travel again, all these things. And so, it just kind of ends with Tanis going, our friends are trapped in a war. And what are we going to do about it? And that's it. So, again, the pacing for me, again, this is why it just didn't feel like a Dragonlance adventure. It just wasn't a fun read for that reason for me personally. And I get it. Some other people, they're reading this and they're loving it, and that's awesome, man. God bless, man. I'm so happy you love it. But for me, it's just not hitting on those beats that I like in this type of a book, especially in a genre that's well established like Dragonlance. The other thing, again, that bothered me was the editing, and I won't bother going into the details of it because I realize this is nitpicking, but I should have kind of folded the page here where it happened. But there's a scene where they're in the last home in the past. Tasselhoff Burfoot wants to show his wife Mary, Destina, the blue crystal staff. So he runs and steals the blue crystal staff from Gold Moon. He runs over to Raceland, and then Raceland, he's got the staff of Magus, and then so he hits, I think that the Mary's hand to stop her from doing something because she was trying to put a potion in Sturm's drink to give him a potion of cowardice so that he would become a coward and would never go fight at the High Clerist's Tower. Like she's really messing up the timeline here, obviously. And then so Raceland hits her, and then Tasselhoff hits them with the blue crystal staff as well. And there's a glitch in the writing where it says Tasselhoff hit them with the staff of Magus instead of the blue crystal skull. I get it. This is nitpicking, but there were a number of other things like that that happened throughout this book. There was when they were going through the Shokin Grove in the Tower of High Sorcery in Palanthas, there was a wight that comes out, talks about his rusted armor and his rusted bloody sword, and then the very next line says, and then he begins to swing his axe. What is it? Is it meant sword, but they put axe instead by accident? It just had a lot of editing, things like that for me, and so that stuff bugs me. It just does. I get it, it's nitpicking, but it just bugs me. That's why we have editors to find this stuff, and everyone's human. We all make mistakes. I get it, but that's kind of just what I didn't Didn't like, oh, I always forget when I do live streams that I can put messages like this on here. I got to remember to do that. When people show up, they can put their message on here when they show up. So there we go. So yeah, so again, so that's why it really the pacing, the editing issues, the lack of adventure, the lack of fun that gave me to give this a 2.5 out of 5. But again, like the premise, unless they're going to use this to reboot everything, a part of me, again, like I've done in that other video, uh, let me put the link to this video here. I did a video called "Should We Be Worried?" and because are they, with this nice little fancy classic Dragonlance up here, are they rebooting Dragonlance? Are they retconning going to get rid of everything, start everything over, create it in a new kind of 2022 overly woke, overly simplistic storytelling? Man, really, really, really hope not, but it could so easily go there. So yeah, so that's why I gave it the rating that I gave it. Really, this is a longer video. I just wanted to kind of explain in a little bit more detail with spoilers why the rating that I gave it, why I gave it. It's not just Kevin RevKev being a hater. It's not just me only liking old stuff and not liking new stuff. There's lots of new stuff that I like. There really is. But for those reasons, I just had to give it the lower score. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to do tonight. Would have liked to have done this in my Geek Corner, and I could have showed off my Dragonlance collection a little bit, but maybe I'll save that for a video for another time. I'll do another live stream video and get maybe get some guests or two on, and we could talk Dragonlance and geek out together here on the channel. A few other things. I'm just starting to really kind of get back into the channel a little bit. As you've seen, I've been doing a lot more videos about Dragonlance, doing other book reviews as well. I am going to do individual spoiler-free reviews for all the Dragonlance books that I've read, as well as all the Star Wars expanded universe books that I've read. So I'm just going to like probably every other day just get a review out, just hopefully to build up your love of reading and to geek out a little bit talking about these different properties that we love so much. So I got that going, and I'm also I tried to get this launched in the spring, but it just didn't work out with my schedule. I want to do something called Open Sundays. So not every Sunday, but probably every other Sunday, I'm going to live stream every other Sunday evening. Would love to get some guests on for that, and we'll just talk about different things. We'll talk about maybe Superman and Lois. We'll talk about comic books. We'll talk about PlayStation 5 games, different things like that. So we'll just, again, geek out, have some fun together, and on Sunday evenings as we wrap up the weekend and get ready to kick off a new week. So that is it for the video today. Again, thank you so much for being a part of the community here. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for hitting that like button. Thank you for commenting, and really means a lot to me. And until the next video, which should drop in the next day or two, God bless you, and we'll talk to you all real soon. Take care, everybody.